Today's narrative centers on a man who, at 70 years old, courage to go after a relationship that reignited a fire in him thought had long since diminished. But what began as a thrilling love story swiftly evolved into a costly pursuit. They put his self-worth and dignity to the test. Keep checking back until the very end as we reveal the insightful lessons he acquired. Lessons learned along the way that demonstrate how true self-respect and love must coexist. No, regardless of your age, if you haven't signed up. However, I urge you to visit our channel. Click the subscribe button and the to keep informed. Click bell for notifications. On our most recent material, I would love to let me know your thoughts on today's topic. If you think the information is fascinating, if not, kindly leave a remark below. Enter a zero because it's necessary for me since it enables me to produce better films. They currently represent your initial interests. Friends furrowed their brows and said, the moment he became aware of their suspicion, that it would not be easy to connect. He was 70 years old, but he stayed a heartbeat full of fire and defiance, an ambition to defy age and anticipations, and a desire for a relationship that would bring up thoughts of. In his early years, his own kids were more harsh warnings and frank speaking sincere worries buried deep within in his own solitude. He sensed the hints of doubt to a persistent murmur that questioned if this was a smart move. He poured his soul, heart, and energy into this connection, considering it to be his final lawyer's love, but he was totally without realizing the price that was waiting for him, a expense that he wouldn't understand until the heart was too involved to retreat. In the beginning, it was an experience. She was unbelievable. She was like a cool breeze, a flash of light that brought him back to life in ways he hadn't felt in years ago, when love was first discovered. Thrilling, endless, and full of chances that it was more than a fleeting "I hope" that was a long-standing need for Alon. Presuming a wish to encounter that experiencing what he feared one more. He had lost time. Reawakening. He believed he had virility and strength. She appeared to see something as it disappeared, that he had long since forgotten, and charm, vitality, and allure that he didn't understand that he still had every time she. When he gazed at him, he felt unstoppable, of going against time itself, and he answered, treating her with nine-fervor degree of concern and commitment that he'd exclusively kept for the most treasured. He lavished her with the people in his life, kind gestures that showered her with praise, and presents for everything he could give her a sense of royalty in. She was a gift and a miracle in his eyes. Couldn't comprehend how they had entered his life. Despite the fact that it is late, little cautions were subliminal indicators that he didn't initially recognize her. Demands were hardly noticeable at all. Desires wrapped in the same delicious charm that had captured his attention, so recommendation here, a preference there, items that he voluntarily made room for, eager to bring her joy. But gradually her requests became increasingly specific. Assertive, there was a sense of she sounded superior, saying that he initially took for granted the light-hearted assertiveness he discovered. It's interesting that he hadn't yet observed the gradual yet consistent change of himself into a unique individual or entity. He hadn't made a conscious decision every time. He became less connected to himself in an attempt to please her, but he still rejected everything as a component of the thrill of a brand new romance story himself. That each small adjustment he made him more intimate with her as the months passed. But the warmth began to diminish, and her behavior became more. She started to remark on his age from a distance, and the restrictions that accompanied it, highlighting the shortcomings he has previously pride in, or acquired the ability to accept, grace. He told himself that he attempted to laugh it off, believed the jokes were merely slight teasing, but as time passed, They increased in frequency, with each piercing deeper into his fears and deteriorating the self assurance he had so diligently developed over time. He began to feel a man who feels alienated in his own flesh, who had grown too old to encounter her hopes. But she's determined to maintain. She focused her criticism on her. Approaching their common world of intimacy, he had always held love in high regard. Was more than just physical. It included warmth, tenderness, and affection attributes he was certain he could offer richly, but she didn't appear to saw it that way, and she began to condemn him in ways that are most offensive to him. Parts that are susceptible, indicating that he was predictable, sluggish, and devoid of the younger man's strength. He attempted to rationale behind her, informing her that his age did not restrict his capacity for intense love, and give her a sense of being valued and wanted. However, her insightful, uncompromising comments just increased his sense of humiliation with each one. Echoing long after she had finished speaking in an effort to demonstrate his value, he made a final effort to remind of all he still possessed for her. He said something that no younger man could. Despite the fact that he no longer had the power of youth, he was able to help her feel good by using the gentle. He communicated this in the closeness of his mouth. Truth with a man's sincerity who had learned, loved, and lived, but rather of calming her response. She chuckled, making a sarcastic, dismissing noise that stole their candid remarks, which turned his vulnerability into what she perceived as pitiful, and her derision was like salt in a wound corroding and scorching the remaining. He was ashamed of his pride, but he held on to the hope that this might be only a stage, a test of his fortitude and commitment as the days stretched into weeks. As he told himself, if he was, she would be understanding and patient. Finally acknowledged the extent of his dedication and the genuineness of his heart. He felt that his perseverance and her love would be steadfast, and hoping she would learn to value his devotion. But as each day goes along, she words eroded his perception of self-worth, pushing him farther into the shadows location, where he started to perceive himself as only an elderly man who was able to give a young woman little in return, made him feel unimportant, and unimportant a man who has outlived his usefulness, holding on to a dream that may have been stupid toward outsiders from the beginning. His choice to remain may appear puzzling. Even pathetic acquaintances who were aware of his suffering questioned why he kept tolerate such suffering. Therefore, why did he permit himself to be devalued by a lady who obviously considered him expendable? Nonetheless, those who have loved one very much comprehend the odd securing love's power, even when it pain prevented him from being able to depart, since it had been thoroughly embedded. It held on to recollections of her initial sweetness, was short-lived, but memorable times when he felt youthful and still alive, even though it hurt. He decided to remain bound by a desire for a love that seemed like salvation at one point, but had turned into his greatest grief. He discovered that he was no longer restricted to her youth, but to a deceptive and powerful and intense desire to prove his worth to a person whose eyes appeared incapable of see past his ears. He became aware that he was obscured by the shadow of someone's endorsement. He was never able to approach the mirage, and in a flash of brilliant insight, he made a late-night choice following a traumatic conflict in which her words were crimson diminished him to a lesser level. He gazed in the glass, and there was the 70-year-old man's visage is inscribed with from years of living his eyes, a few lines filled with tales of joy, and he witnessed more than just the effects of aging. But the Mark's level of experience of tenacity in that moment, he realized that loving oneself had to spoke louder so that he wouldn't have to degraded by someone who would never recognize him for who he really is. With his newfound bravery, He chose to face he and her, sat across from each other, and did it gently. He revealed his affection for her to her, but the suffering was too much for him to bear. The subtle yet persistent humiliation he endured informed her that he was prepared to leave, and that instead of choosing love, he was choosing himself. That just caused her pain. She eyed him in disbelief, obviously surprised, as if she hadn't thought that he would discover the courage to depart at that precise moment. He sensed his dignity beginning to stir. The dignity that had gradually been undermined with each cruel comment and disparaging look. The conversation was terrible, but also freeing, and he sympathized with it was his first time acting older than he actually was. The feeling of giving in to weakness, but accepting the strength and wisdom that accompanies adulthood. As he parted ways with her, a deep sensation of relief came over me. Over him a burden he was unaware he was carrying, unexpectedly raised. He recalled all he had experienced during the countless encounters that had influenced him, the innumerable memories that are stored in him. He became aware of his worth, that with every wrinkle, his value remained constant. Or gray hair, he realized suddenly. Nor true value may be seen by everyone, particularly those who merely pay attention to what is shallow. He observed plainly that by giving himself down to her desires, he had been disoriented, yet by leaving, he recovered not just his self-esteem, but also the calm serenity that results from love. He was the only one who could grant himself the days that were difficult, and solitude started to creep in, and the sound of quiet was. This solitude felt clean, but it was piercing, honorable, and unburdened by the weight of needing to demonstrate his worth to someone who would never comprehend. He began to find solace in his solitude when he understood that, despite her absence, he was still a historical man who is valuable in every way. His facial wrinkles were a chapter. Every gray hair is a reminder of a life well lived, and he discovered months later that the experience may still bring joy in life, demonstrated to him that true love is not defined by youth or physical, not by desire, but by respect. Compassion and respect that go beyond age. He saw places he had only ever hoped to witness rekindled desires that he had long disregarded, and adopted things that made him happy. Even additionally, he reconnected after heartbreak alongside friends he hadn't seen in a long time, friends who appreciated him for who he was. Basic pleasures such as reading and painting, and with time, he recognized that his worth was determined by the sense of fulfillment he experienced within himself. Instead of depending on a younger person's approval, he accepted the reality that the benefit of getting older is that it imparts knowledge about what matters most. Each look on his face expressed a story, and each silver strand functioned as proof of the difficulties he had encountered throughout his lifetime. And to those who could older and may be dealing with similar problems, his voyage acts as a kind reminder of the value of love and the everyone wants to be adored. Lovely desire, but it should never come at the price of one's inner tranquility. Over time, we discover that the only way to comprehend lessons is through the perspective of dignity, and experience is a treasure to be zealously guarded. In retrospect, he noticed that despite being hard, the relationship with her was moreover. It is a significant lesson in the bravery to let go and the fortitude to prioritize his own value over everyone else's. He had discovered the brief approval of others, that in order to be loved, he had to first adore himself completely and completely. His flaws and advantages, the decision to leave her wasn't the end. It was a reclamation of a romance. Oneself, a choice to put his personal heart over the unrelenting search for an elusive approval. And for people who, hearing his tale, it turns into an illustration of why loving oneself is not a luxury, but essential even in situations where the world appears to work together to cause us to question our worth. This tale, possibly just the elderly can genuinely value this voyage of self-discovery, as they are those who recognize that an individual's their integrity determines their value, and gratitude in the face of hardship instead of their youthful vitality. Each wrinkle turns into a badge of glory, and each gray hair represents knowledge acquired during the years of living. His experience serves as a reminder to everyone of us that genuine power is not present in clinging to items that diminish us more than we are, but instead in possessing the having the guts to leave and choose peace. Lesson 1 on joy and self-respect. Appearance of adolescent romance when the radiance of youth can be seductive. Crucial to maintain equilibrium and refrain from slipping into the delusion that spending time with a younger person will help. Many young individuals find the character appealing, find themselves investing time and effort and connections where they look for confirmation from someone who is unable to genuinely recognize their value, and the desire to demonstrate our continued vitality and power might turn into a trap that causes us to put up with rudeness or humiliations we would never tolerate. Love should be a priority in other stages of life, a cozy, respectful, and reciprocal environment, not a trial in which we must confirm for ourselves the necessity of youthful excitation, shouldn't take precedence over the need for a purposeful, nurturing relationship that honors and acknowledges our own selves. And the undeniable importance of self-love in the narrative clearly illustrates that regardless of how much we care about other people, love for oneself must always come first. Character gave up some of his honor, believing that his actions in the name of love. Despite his noble perseverance, he was gradually losing his affection for being oneself requires a commitment before to any partnership. Without it, we risk putting ourselves at danger of manipulation and contempt. Understanding that we are deserving of all the love and respect ages are necessary for any healthy relationship, since we can only value, can we expect the same thing from ourselves? Others to inform me of your continued, please leave while we view this video together. If you discovered the first remark below, these lessons are beneficial. And Lesson 3, Brave 2. Embrace solitude as a way to finding inner tranquility. By stepping away from a poisonous connection is more than just a gesture. Reclaiming oneself is the essence of separation. When the character made the decision to depart, he terminated a humiliating cycle and a partnership that prioritizes solitude above persistent pain, may be among the bravest and most respectable choices we. Despite the fact that loneliness may feel overwhelming, it offers the priceless opportunity to rediscover one's worth and bring back inner tranquility that no one else can offer by virtue of the courage we display. Giving ourselves the chance to recover, rethink our lives, and find tranquility. Solitude within oneself in this manner turns into a sanctuary or sacred space where self-worth could be restored. Instead of Lesson 4, a penalty to be feared, respecting life and valuing knowledge. As we get older, our memories and our true treasures are our experiences, more robust and profound than ephemeral. The journey of the character serves as beauty, an indication that each gray hair and wrinkle has a history with those that are only drawn to young people, and physical beauty remains ensnared in superficiality, and are incapable of identifying the deep age-induced beauty through effort to appease people who don't see the true us. Our understanding and our thoughts on this narrative teaches us that upholding our honor is invaluable, particularly in our latter years, as well as the wish to be desired and adored stays natural, and it should never be attractive at the expense of finally at the price of our self-respect. Our tenacity is a futile endeavor, but as we get older, We develop a viewpoint that sees past appearances and embraces the depth of interpersonal relationships and wisdom that develops over decades of life. Instead, rather than adhering to the principles of youth without end, accepting our own strength and knowledge of history enhance our lives and attracts people who are genuinely admire our essence as he took it back. Every wrinkle in his body became a sign of knowledge, and each gray hair turned into a crown, signifying his tenacity and strength for elderly people. This travel acts as a prompt to remember self-respect and decency are precious, more valuable than temporary approval, possessing a wisdom that few people can achieve, but that offers peace beyond measure. Character realized his actual value was not characterized by his age or his integrity in the face of hardship. Lesson 5. Generosity, not obligation or guilt, is the cornerstone of an important friendship. In spite of not having he thought that his youthful physical vigor, he was able to show his love and devotion by gentleness, like oral intimacy, demonstrating that physical proximity in a partnership is much more profound than straightforward performance. This was among his deep insights that a man who takes the opportunity to think about his partner's pleasure frequently gives bodies a sense of kindness and concern, and this dedication shows that they are prepared to place a prioritizing one's partner's needs before one's own pride in order to convey a feeling of relationship that transcends the physical limitations. But he also found and respect for the truth must be paramount. Giving pleasure in return is a beautiful thing, show of love, but it should never be employed as a control mechanism or as a cause of shame. For his encounter showed him that real intimacy is about respecting and valuing one another without revealing indications of love into tasks or focal centers of disagreement. With this, professor's talk acts as a reminder that affection and any relationship's level of commitment should be received with gratitude and deference. Goodwill or an effort to please people should never be assumed to be employed to diminish the value of another individual. Mutual gratitude is required for genuine intimacy when each move is valued, and there is never an act of love reduced or employed as a weapon. An invitation to think about dignity and love for oneself. If you were moved by this story and you believe their teachings can assist others in becoming more comfortable, and feel free to consider enjoying the video and signing up for the channel. Then spread the word about this to everyone who might be struggling to gain respect, honor, and self-worth in their relationships. We frequently discover the importance of dignity and self-love from the wisdom among people who have overcome the challenges of life. It's common to find friendship and affection and really satisfying at every level of life, but it must never occur during at the price of our honor. This is the key to aging honorably and self-worth. As we reflect on these teachings, it is clear that actual aging is about maintaining a resolute dedication to one's own principles and dignity. This story is a powerful reminder that self-respect is a gift we give to ourselves and ought never to be given up for the fleeting validation or acceptance of others. Even if it's true, love never fails to make our lives better. Requires us to give up our moral fundamentals of the lessons taught here. Give each person a useful handbook, especially those who are older, who may be having problems with self-worth, identity, and love, are common. The desire to feel noticed and valued when we arrive at a particular stage of life. However, as this tale so beautifully shows, that the pursuit of love ought to never sacrifice our dignity for anything, and dignity in a culture that often elevates youth, we could experience under pressure to demonstrate our vitality or try to alter who we are in order to fit according to other people's expectations. although their enormous strength in staying rooted, refusing to fall for the enticement of superficial acceptance, and deciding to respect our actual selves with all of our distinctive traits and experiences that only develop with age, adding layers every year of insight, tenacity, and profundity to our being, and we bear these treasures. Within a powerful but invisible legacy, we let them observe and experience our worth is established by our age, not by external confirmation, but instead by the strength we possess within us, the self assurance to strongly maintain our truth. In this tale, the character rediscovered his inner peace and feeling of self worth through accepting the entirety of his life's path and deciding to love oneself. Initially, he mustered the bravery to distance himself from a partnership that has ended, respected his health or his feeling of, this wasn't only a decision to stop, self a love story. It was a significant act of self affirmation and a spiritual rebirth, a dedication to his own honor. This trip emphasizes a basic reality. Self acceptance, self love, and self respect is more than just a concept. Aspiring to be the fundamental practices that support us during the storms of life as we progress through the later stages of life, we would be persuaded to accept and tolerate circumstances that don't benefit us loneliness or terror. But this tale teaches us we are worthy of more by deciding to end partnerships or circumstances that fail to acknowledge our we value and respect our strength. Constructed over many years, every line on our faces, gray hair, and memories we own is evidence of our ability to bounce back. Achieved, and as society may rejoice, there is a deeper beauty to youthful beauty. In discernment of our identity and in remaining steadfast in that understanding in the greatest life lessons are in many ways preserved for the long lived. Sufficient to completely understand the importance of this character's self exploration. Self discovery is a reminder to all, but particularly to the elderly, that friendship and love are presents that shouldn't compel us to. It need courage to compromise our essence, analyze one's life, and acknowledge any changes are essential and make choices that prioritize one's own value. This tale is a strong argument for accepting solitude, not as a danger, but as a chance to cultivate a closer bond with self discovery of former hobbies, restore connections, and foster happiness on one's own terms, which allows us to emerge from sorrow more resilient and with an increased understanding of what we actually deserve when we're old enough to feel under pressure to make a compromise or settle. This narrative serves as a reminder that each action we take love for oneself is a step toward inner tranquility and that our worth is never based on other people's acceptance, but instead through our inner strength. It motivates us to uphold our honor, to maintain our moral principles, and to accept who we have become. Despite years of achievements, obstacles, and development, for everyone undergoing comparable challenges, that these lessons address reminding us that our knowledge is what truly adds value to our integrity and strength. Our journey is unique, and experiences are valuable and priceless. Our inner strength is unmatched. In the end, self respect and tranquility are. This character's tale serves as evidence of the strength of self love that ought to be cherished and safeguarded, since it is the basis on which we construct our legacy when this comes to a close, strong journey. Unquantifiable treasures and the ability to choose. Being oneself during difficult times is an act of bravery that displays the elegance and strength of a well-lived existence. If you enjoy this video, please comment. Below is a lesson that you can use to remember to like your own life as well. Please subscribe to our channel and share it for more inspirational stories and teachings are needed. Apply everything you've learned about love to yourself, self-worth, and dignity.